Hi friends, and welcome back on this rainy day. Let's pick up right where we left off. We still had a bit of time before help arrived to pour the concrete and finish the base of the house, so we kept working on the utility chamber. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't on our side. It kept raining. Anyway, once we were there, I decided to give it a shot and I hoped the rain would ease up. First thing first, I removed all the pipes connected to the pump. I did check the forecast and it mentioned a bit of rain, but I definitely didn't expect what came. I began by taking off the little frame around the pipe, which turned out to be a mistake. I had nailed it together way too tightly and removing it was a real struggle. In the process, I cracked some of the concrete around it. Not ideal. The concrete hadn't cured properly because of the rain, but it was solid enough, so I went ahead and started building the walls. I started placing bricks at the bottom of the hole. I was going for a square shape and luckily I didn't need to cut any bricks. The layout was simple, 2 full bricks per side, then one turned 90 degrees to lock the corners. I tried to plan it as efficiently as possible. It worked out pretty well and surprisingly, the base turned out level, especially considering how little room I had down there to adjust things. Then it was time to fire up the mixer and start filling the box with concrete. The kids were hanging out in the container, watching cartoons and staying dry, meanwhile we were working outside. We had stored a bunch of old clothes in the container, which came in super handy. Because I had to change multiple times, I was soaked, like completely drenched. Once the first row of blocks were filled with concrete, I started on the second one, working my way up row by row. To speed things up, I stuffed some scrap paper into the center of the hole to block the concrete. Then I just dumped everything into the hole, wheelbarrow straight in, and that was it. That saved a lot of time and effort. After the second row, I also started backfilling behind the blocks with sand. That was pretty much the rhythm of the whole day. To be completely honest, these days are really rough. Especially when you are soaked, covered with mud, and thinking about the warm house and the comfy sofa waiting back home. But if I hadn't chosen that, well, we wouldn't make any progress, and nobody's going to do it for us. So we just kept going. We managed to build the walls all the way up to the top. We didn't fill the last row with concrete though, since the sun was going down, so we finished that part the next day. A few days later, my dad finally arrived, and we ordered 7 cubic meters of concrete for the day. It was a bit less than we actually needed, but we had a mixer, plus enough cement and sand to finish off the rest ourselves. It's better to order a bit less than too much and end up wasting it. There was a bit of confusion at first about how the driver would pour the concrete, but we just told him not to overthink it, just start dumping it in. Our neighbor Richard also joined the crew and helped us level out the top of the base. The concrete came from the same company as before. We were super happy with their service last time, and once again, everything went exactly as agreed. The distance between the formwork was about 6 meters, so we decided to create long lines of concrete that we could level perfectly to the formwork. We had a couple of 3-meter aluminum screeds to get the level right and smooth out the surface. Once those lines were set, we filled in the gaps between to make sure everything was nice and level across the top. This layer of concrete is what's going to hold the entire house and all the internal walls. Later on, we will pour an extra 5 cm layer to make the final surface, so it doesn't have to be 100% perfect at this stage. I read online that even 2-3 cm difference is also acceptable here, but we kept it under 1 cm, which I think is pretty solid. My dad and Richard handled the leveling. I just didn't really feel up for that part. It just felt too important to mess up, so instead I kept the concrete moving, helped them out, and made sure to shake the rebars underneath. so the concrete could settle properly. It was honestly so exciting to see the base finally taking shape. We waited a long time for this moment. Once the truck had dumped all the concrete, we still needed a few more mixer loads. So my dad jumped on mixing duty while we finished up the last bits and filled the gaps. At first, I was thinking we would do the whole thing with just a mixer by ourselves, but I have to say, having ready mixed concrete delivered is a huge time saver. I'm not even sure if it's more expensive, but either way, I'm happy with it how it turned out. In the end, there wasn't much left to do, just clean the tools and enjoy the rest of the day. The day before, we didn't feel like waiting an extra few hours after finishing the base, so we left the smoothing for the next morning. It's an important step because we will be laying bitumen sheets under the walls and any sharp bits in the concrete could pierce through. And yeah, you definitely want to avoid your walls soaking up water from below. We had to add a bit of water to the concrete to loosen it up and make the surface easier to work with. My dad went old school, down on his knees, smoothing the concrete with a piece of wood. But I had an idea and built a tool out of an old hoe. Even my dad ended up using it, which meant I was back where I started, doing the smoothing by hand on my knees. We knocked it out in under 30 minutes and were already moving on to the next task. The next step was to finish off the top of the utility chamber. The only thing was missing is the lid. I picked up a heavy-duty plastic hatch from the local store and I actually got a huge discount on it just because it had a few dents. We installed the frame inside the chamber and laid some planks across the top with a horizontal support in the middle. Concrete is heavy, so it's important to make sure everything's secure. This time, my dad stopped me from nailing everything together. That way, it will be easier to remove the wooden form once the concrete has cured. Once the hole was covered, we installed the outer frame, placed the hatch in position, and made sure everything was perfectly level. Concrete without rebar is just asking for trouble, so the next step was reinforcing it. We added a few pieces of rebar to give it the strength it needs. After a final level check, we even added a ventilation pipe to allow airflow down into the chamber. And this time, I had the honor of mixing the concrete, while my dad took care of the rest. Here is the final result. Not bad at all, if you ask me. We had a bit of daylight left. We decided to take down the formwork from the base. Gave all the wood a good clean. Every piece can be reused later on, and when you're building something from scratch, nothing should go to waste. This was really our first proper season working on the land. With winter creeping in, things are starting to slow down a bit. In the next episode, I'll walk you through how much we spent so far to get the house on this stage. I know some of you might be thinking about doing something similar, and let's be honest, cost is a big part of the journey. Hopefully, it will give you a clearer picture what to expect. If you like to follow along, don't forget to subscribe, tap that like button, and I'll catch you in 2 weeks. Mark is out, take care, peace.